all of a sudden the adoption of virtual reality and augmented reality now becomes, we need this. How far can we drive it?
Scanning really should be something that we're all making mandatory because it really solidifies, are the as-builts dependable?
And now you start to see it on airports and hospitals and places that it's been used and proven. There's scanning involved.
With technology advancements, workflow, simplicity, pricing points, they're major drivers for adoption into other industries.
So the size of the data doesn't matter as long as you can compress it to make the upload fast enough.
We are rapidly approaching a point where cloud infrastructure is viable.
Ease of capture and frequency of capture is going to become more important.
So if it's an existing facility, your first step is always going to be reality capture.
We're going to do our first panel of the conference called The Future of Reality Capture. I know everybody's still having fun, but I would appreciate it if you guys wouldn't mind finding a seats, or if you guys want to keep talking, you can head out to the vendor area or outside. But those of you that want to listen, you're welcome to sit so we can get started. Is everybody having a good time so far? We're almost end of day one. We having a good time? I know I am. And we got a panel full of people I love hanging out with. Lots of solutions up here. And we're going to just start and do some introductions. My goal was to curate who I think are some of the leaders in the reality capture space, whether it be hardware, software, processing, hosting, visualizing, and there's still plenty that aren't up here, but these guys are here. They're our vendors. They're wonderful, and I wanted to curate a conversation where we together can talk over some current topics of where the industry is, where the technology is, where we see it going, and have some conversation between the panelists here. And then we'll leave kind of the second half of the panel really open to audience participation. So if you think of questions that you want to pose to this panel, like I said last year, I don't think it's very common that we have a single panel, one stage with all of these vendors at the same time. So we're going to start with introductions. We'll just start down here at the end with name, company, and kind of what you guys do.
Yeah, thank you, Matt. My name is Marek Colton from NavVis, based in our New York City office, handling sales for the Northeast. Been with the company since its inception on the US soil in 2017. So I've seen the growth of mobile scanning from big and bulky, smaller, faster. Very happy to be here today.
Josh Rayburn with Leica Geosystems, based in Charlotte. I'm the business manager for all of reality capture in the US and Canada. So been in this industry for over 20 years, 12 years with Leica. Started in the static scanning world, come up through mobile mapping, and helped bring other technologies to market like the BLK to Fly and the BLK to Go.
Hi, Brianna Williams. I'm the head of product at StructionSite. We are a 360 reality capture photo documentation platform. Been at StructionSite for over 3.5 years now, and my background is in project management, so working on hospitals, schools, and high-rise projects where I use solutions like everyone that's up here on the stage today, and now I'm on the other side of the fence trying to make sure that we're building things that are valuable for everyone here today.
John Marino with Faro Technologies. Based out of the Atlanta area, leading sales for the AEC market segment over North America. Been doing this for about 20 years. Faro tenure about, 13, 14, and also worked with augmented reality hardware and software in the middle, and Autodesk as well for just under 4 years in the middle. So look forward to being here. Thank you.
Hello, Robert Shear. You guys heard me earlier. Open Space, about 3.5 years. Spent a bunch of time at Autodesk with Dom, launch and recap. Rolled a 87 Land Cruiser around with Pegasus with Josh about a year ago, doing some stuff for fire mapping. So I've been in this space, I guess, for about 10 years.
Hi, I'm Dominique Poliquin, so a former recap guy as well, together with Rob at Autodesk, now at CEO on one of the co-founders of Syntu, which develops a platform called Syntu Cloud, which is a hardware agnostic, mesh-based visualization on engineering platform for scan on BIM models.
Yeah, my name is Brett Settles. I'm the Global Director of Customer Success for Revisto. We're a collaboration platform based on the cloud, really serving the AECO industry. And I've been dealing with scans since about 2006, starting with the civil side of things and working my way into industrial. So worked with a lot of different products, both hardware and software, and excited to be a part of this. So thank you.
Awesome, thank you. So for this first part, really it's conversational between the panelists. I want to start with, I think to me, is just kicking off the panel by saying, how do we feel the current status of reality capture is? We look historically, I feel like there's been a lot of change, and I feel like the speed of change is increasing a lot. What's some thought around reality capture? And that covers from collection to processing to visualizing. How do we feel the current state is, in the industries that you guys are focusing on?
So, if I can start, I think we are still experiencing hypergrowth on all ends and all the spectrums of the whole industry. We were talking about the hardware, software, workflows. So we have very exciting times that we see everything raising from the ground up and new forms shaping itself. And we'll see how many of them will form something bigger, how many of them will fade away. But as of right now, we are here for the ride to see how many new things will come out.
I think I'll build on that. I think we're seeing hypergrowth and we're stuck. I think there's a lot of things that are stuck. I think Brett will probably elaborate on certain file formats, certain sort of status quo, certain way the projects are delivered. But then there's a tremendous amount of innovation happening, so it's sort of this interesting kind of mix, I think, in the market right now.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I once again going to agree with everyone here, but the growth is leading to sort of a precursor to the conversation we were having was this sort of rigidity to the things that we're used to, right? Since we're growing so fast, I think that the industry needs to be open to different formats and essentially different, prescriptions to the problems, right? I remember seeing a lot of situations where it was kind of like, well, scan it. Well, what does that mean, right? Like, what do you mean scan it? Like, why are we scanning it? And what are we scanning it for? So I think that as more options are available, people need to understand what are those best options for what they're doing?
Yeah, so I'll add to it. I think that, the industry is growing, and I think it's growing really fast. I think there's some exciting things happening with technology, and I think really what takes us to that next level is getting the data into more people's hands. I frequently hear so much today that there's one or two people in the office that touch the data. We need that data touched in 20s of people's, hundreds of people's, and thousands of people's hands. And that's where we just start that exponential growth and that upward trend that we all desire for.
And if we consider tape measures, who has a tape measure? We all have a tape measure. Still using them. So there's the generalist, and now as we move from generalist to specialist conversation, and distos, and they're still there too. But they were also very innovative at that time and still are great tools. You use the right tool for the right job. And I think as we continue to innovate together, we will be raising and rising these tides together. But those are still there, and they're still great tools. But we need to continue to innovate and push those limits.
I think this just goes into the conversation of, yes, we're experiencing hypergrowth, but we're also trying to figure out what is the best tool for the job that you have at hand, and what is the customer trying to get out of this. And we're all trying to find where we kind of fit in, and we're doing that in tandem with the customers. So to the question earlier about standardization, are we there? Are all of us up here ready to have that conversation, or is it really about best practices and being willing to adapt where the industry is kind of headed and what the needs of the customers are?
No, I think this industry is growing, but still we're a niche business, okay? When you compare to other industries like IoT or even BIM, any BIM conferences is 10,000 people coming, you see? So how can we make sure that and we are having these kind of discussions in the Digital Twin Consortium. Reality capture is still a very niche piece of everything spoken in this kind of consortiums. How can we expand? How can we make sure that every project has a reality capture piece in it? We are not yet there, I feel.
Yeah, so just to piggyback on what Dominic said and what Josh said, our conferences are niche and small, so we have 100, 200, 300 people. Some of them have a couple of thousand. IoT might have tens of thousands, and you can think about it to what Josh said, the usability, how many users can you have using reality capture? If you have some IoT sensor, I have a bunch of sensors at home. I put one under my daughter's crib just to wake up at night and see what's the temperature on the sensor versus the air conditioner, because I don't trust the air conditioner. And I can say maybe this beacon has a better read than air conditioner itself. And you can put I probably have hundreds of sensors at home that cost $5, $10. They're super easy to set up. There's still a bunch of annoying apps, they don't talk to each other, but you can grasp them, you can deploy them. I can click an app that garden waters itself. But the more people will use it, the more tools will come out, the market will grow. It's just going to elevate everything.
But on that note, accessibility is key. You're talking about sensors that are very cheap and they're easy to deploy, and you can open it up on your phone and you can open up the two apps and compare it. Something that you said earlier is the more people that have access to this information, the more this reality capture space is going to grow, and the more use cases customers are going to come to us with. So I think it's really about accessibility, interoperability, and making sure that the tools are affordable.
Yeah, one thing that I would add on your comment about standardization is, I think that standardization can be a good thing, but I don't know that we're a mature enough market to be there yet. So I lean towards the lines that we need the best practices. We need education. We need to have conversations that help people start to understand the technology, its use cases, and how to get the answers they're looking for out of that data. Because the data is where the real value lies, and it's just getting the answers out of that. And I think that because we're such a niche industry, and we're, like many of you have said, and we're still trying to grow, we're still trying to expand and get in more people's hands. If we standardize, we'll kind of start slowing down the technology race to stay in front, to get that next disruptive technology, and that's what we don't want to stop.
Awesome. Appreciate. What's one of the things you think is happening right now? Like what's a status quo that we should be challenging today on typical? I mean, a lot of the use cases we're talking about are construction. What are some of those that are still stuck in old ways and why are they stuck in old ways? Why is it hard to, we look at the tools we're using and we're like, oh, it makes sense to use all of them on this project. What is it that's stopping us from it becoming the normal, or what do we think the next steps to kind of get that rolling is?
Yeah, I can start with this, and one of the biggest values I saw, a couple years ago was in the Sensu tool. Actually, was that the big shout out. You like that? Construction, especially with the rapid visualization needed for what construction's doing outside of deviation reporting, right, which is much more specific. But as far as day-to-day visuals of what's going on site, I mean, nothing beats a lightweight mesh. However, I find that a lot of the industry still is like, well, we don't do meshes. We have point clouds that someone either delivers us or we generate, right? And there's nothing against that format, but I don't think that format really fits the bill of the situation where something more lightweight is needed, unlike design. So, it kind of goes back to one of those original conversations that we had with that rigidity of, well, these are the file formats that we use. Well, let's broaden that. Let's use those, plus these, plus those, to really achieve the best results and get the best results for our client.
I'm also going to use the analogy of the iPod. The iPod did a great job. It gave people music in a very small device they could put in their pocket. People didn't necessarily know they needed an iPhone until the iPhone came out. And I think we're in kind of a state in the industry where we've got iPods and they do a good job and we like them, but what else can we do with it and where can we take it? And I think that's going to mean getting rid of some of the old things that we've done in the past and challenging status quo.
And I think as all of us on the stage when we speak with our customers and folks from the industry, one of the first questions we always ask is, what do you want to do with the data? What do you want to accomplish? And that's the part where we have to ask this tough question of ourselves, of our companies, of you out there, to say, what should we be doing with this? What are we not doing today? I think that's something that I think we're all up for that challenge, and that will continue to help this conference grow. Right?
I think one status quo that we're challenging every day is that reality capture does not mean a laser scanner on a tripod. Right? I think that's just the way this is going. You know, our customers capture themselves. Now it's very, very different, but I think we're moving into a time when you've got a LiDAR in your pocket, right? And you've got capabilities to stitch images and different reality capture modalities together. You know, I think I'm saying this to provoke, not because I believe it, but are we at a travel agents convention in 2002 right now, or 1998, where pretty soon everyone's going to be booking their own flights? So just again, a little provocative for sake of today, but I do think that a lot of folks think that reality capture is an $80,000 scanner on a tripod, and that's, I think, something we need to challenge.
It's not just in your pocket. It could be a drone. It could be autonomous capture. There are so many different we talked about this earlier. What is reality capture?
In a lot of ways, we've been doing reality capture in construction since we had cameras.
Or charcoal.
Yeah, that'll work too.
Yeah, one thing I would second is what Robert said is just, you know, we got to get beyond this just a scanner on a tripod. You know, whether you're getting LiDAR data from a LiDAR sensor or it's a mixture of LiDAR and photogrammetry, it's reality capture. You know, to send a drone in the sky that takes photos only, convert that to a point cloud, we have reality capture. And it's really about looking at the different tools that are available to you to do the different jobs that you need to get answers from. You know, today it may be a tripod scanner, tomorrow it may be a drone, you know, next week it may be, you know, a handheld or a backpack, a wearable type device. But it's using the different technologies in hand and the workflows that are available with all the different softwares, whether they're something you already own or a different third-party software that's outside your current manufacturer, and getting those workflows to get your answers.
But we have to be careful not to oversell the capabilities. Okay, there are physical limits to some technologies, you see. And I've seen that happening. We were in the drone business with Autodesk. Look at what the consolidation that happened, okay? And because the drone business, somehow 10 years ago, they started by claiming we are the solution to all the problems. No, this is not true. You are just a flying camera. That's it, okay? So it doesn't work indoor, doesn't work. So, and then there has been a consolidation, and there's the winners are still there, but there's been a few people dying from this as well, okay? Despite a lot of investments. So we have to be careful about not overselling the iPad. Okay, iPad is fine, but what if Apple stops selling iPads with a LiDAR? Exactly as Microsoft stopped selling Kinect, you see? So there is we have to be careful. Not today, still today, you get what you pay for. And there is a big difference with an iPad at $1,000 on a laser scanner at $50,000.
You know, one thing that I think that's really important, and it relates directly to what you said, is that it really benefits hiring someone in the company that knows how to look at hardware, right? And understand what type of work are we doing and what type of hardware do we need to capture exactly what we need to do it. And in scanning, it was much more common back in the early days. It's still common now where people just aren't collecting in the right method for what they're trying to achieve.
Well, and software as well. I think we all have bits of software in our solutions. And let's be real, all of our solutions are pretty easy to use. You walk up to the thing and you press a button. You take a picture. Does it lie in the software side? Is the question.
Probably. I mean, I would say so. As someone that's scanned and worked on the software side and developed software or helped developers develop software, let's be very clear. Yeah, I think it does. I think it does lie on the software side, and hopefully I don't get bashed for claiming responsibility for this. But all the confusion happens after it's collected, right? Like you collect it, and even if you chose the wrong thing to collect with, you don't find out until the office, right? And when you're going through the data and you're trying to understand the data, and you have to understand the software to review that part of it, right? Unless you can do it right there on the scanner. So maybe software should get better.
I was just going to say that I feel like starting with hardware and software is typically a mistake. You should start with a problem and an outcome in mind, and then choose your hardware and software from there. Because if you think you're going to be using 360 photos and photogrammetry to get the accuracy that you would need for, say, tolerances of structural steel, you're not going to be able to work your way backwards to that. So I really think starting from a place of a use case and a desired outcome is critical when it comes to reality capture.
Yeah, I think one thing that's really interesting about that is that, like, for example, our software is a visual aid in context. That's where Dominique's software is, analysis and visualization and issue collection, right? There's a Venn diagram that chains us all together down this bench, right? All the way to collection. So I think that's a great observation.
Dare we talk interoperability next? Talk about provoking?
Yes.
Yes.
I think we have not. Okay. We have not done yet a good job at explaining that reality capture data is an answer to the solution. A lot of the companies we visit, they say, okay, I understand what you do. Can I press a button and get my BIM model? This is not exactly how it works, okay? And this has been the same for 10 years, 15 years. You still need to use Revit. You still need to snap primitives to the point cloud to get your BIM model. And so at some point, what we tried to do with Recap a while ago is explain that the point cloud is what we called it at that time was a first-class citizen. So you can use it with a good reliability in Revit or NavVis or AutoCAD. Okay, so why model when you have all the geometry already in a point cloud or as in a mesh as we do? But anyway, so I think we have not done yet a good job at explaining that the point cloud is a piece of the problem you're trying to solve. You see what I mean?
Just as the photos are, for example.
Love it. Well, I want to transition. I know there's a lot of people in here that likely have questions for this awesome group up here. So I want to transition to some Q&A. Let me see if I got my other mic. There we go. There he is. Okay. So if you guys have any questions, feel free to raise your hand for the panel, and David can get with you.
Any questions? I missed some back here last time, so apologies for that. Let's start here.
It's a continuation from the point that was just made. So if you had to make a prediction, when are meshes going to dethrone building information models?
So,
can you repeat the question? We couldn't hear you.
Yeah, sorry. It's kind of hard to tell. So the question is a continuation from the point that was just made about meshes. When do you think that meshes will dethrone building information models as we currently know them?
This is a great question. I think that we're on the way. Okay, now we can capture and turn that into meshes. This is what we do basically. But now this is simple geometry still. There is no intelligence in the geometry we capture. So there must be some new a layer of AI to be able to interpret the geometry as a piece of an equipment, so which you can attach parameters. Okay, so we are still in it's a purely geometric model. It's not yet a parametric model. You see what I mean? So when we get there, and we have all these companies are working on AI engines to be able to extract meaningful information or asset information from your point cloud or your mesh. At that point, when you know that this piece of mesh is, let's say, a motor pump, then we are getting closer to a BIM model. That will take some time, though.
It's really interesting. I've had some conversations with people about a full circle back to reality capture, which is essentially means that you go out, it's either greenfield or you capture existing. You go through the entire process that we always do, and then you come back to scanning existing conditions after construction, right? And then the only thing after that is to attach the parameters to that. So I think that the possibility of meshes replacing BIM models or BIM information is possible, but I don't think we're going to get there very quickly. And I think there's only one software out there that I know of that is currently attaching metadata to meshes, unless you guys are doing it now. So
I just want to add to that. I think it's going to take a long time. Look at self-driving cars. We've been talking about that problem for how long, and that takes, finding out what is happening in front of the vehicle, interpreting that, and making it an action. And it takes tons of training to get cars to be able to do that, and you can see how many people have been in that space unsuccessfully all the way right now. And construction, I think, is far more complex than driving a car, as everyone here would know. So I think it's going to take a long time to get there, and I think it's really more about how can we pick specific use cases that are going to provide value. Like, let's not try and boil the ocean, but let's try and pick a couple of items that are easy to identify and do derive value right now and focus on those.
Yeah, I think that there's a lot of exciting things coming, with mesh models and the metadata that can happen with them, the layering of the mesh. And I think right now we're at a stage we still have a long way to go. AI, deep learning will help us get there. But I think from a use case standpoint, it's actually starting to understand using the mesh model for visualization, for sharing and collaboration, and only focusing on those specific areas where you may need to go into more of those exact geometric shapes and drive your efficiency in that way.
Yeah, and just to follow up on that, I don't think it's going to be like a dramatic transition that we go to sleep on December 31st with point clouds, then we wake up on January 1st with meshes. I think it's going to be a gradual change where some industries, some use cases will adopt it first, because let's say the AI will be 50% smart or 50% there. And then it's going to be 70%, 80, 90, and the higher the AI IQ is going to grow, the more people adopt it. So we'll slowly start changing there.
Any other questions? Make sure if you raise your hand, put it high so I can see it right here. Oh, again, back to you.
I'm just going to hog the mic. So recently there was this big transition from the tripod scanners to the mobile scanners. I'm curious what the next form factor is going to be. Are we going to have face-mounted LiDAR? Well, what's the next iteration?
So wouldn't the ultimate scanner just be right here in your eye? Then we can take out the software, we take all of that stuff, and just have this. I think so.
You mean images?
You're welcome. Yes. Open Space, Hello Builder, StructionSite are all great for that.
What's interesting is I think at a high level, there's a software that's not represented on the stage that does that quite well in Pix4D, right? With what they've done with the cameras on the cranes and stuff like that. But I think the bigger problem is that how do you get the amount of data that you need inside and out of any situation that you're in to do the job properly? And I think that's where we go right back to what everyone has said with it, that it's going to take a myriad of solutions.
Well, and let's draw an analogy back in the days when we said, wouldn't it be great to have a video phone? Okay, so what do you need for a video phone? You need a TV, you need some way for somebody else to have a camera on their side, and all these things. And if you thought at that time how we would make a video phone, it's nowhere near the way it is that we have it today. So is that technology someplace at MIT right now, or in the depths of our R&D labs, or is it just one step away from being that next level thing? I'm not sure I have the answer to that, but it's an interesting question.
Yeah, I think as we look at the LiDAR technology and think about smaller form factors and implementing it into things like glasses and those type of things, we have to understand what the value is for that, and are we driving towards a commodity product, and what's the cost people are willing to pay for that commodity product, and the accuracy they're willing to accept. And I think it's a different point of, are we trying to update the metaverse, or are we trying to get engineering accuracy? And that's where we have to draw the line of where we go in size and shape and form factor, and really understand that. I mean, you can invest and drive the technology into something like a pair of eyeglasses and probably hit a great level of accuracy, but is anyone going to be willing to pay for it? At least today, probably different in 10 years.
Any other questions?
That's a great point.
Here you go.
Are any of you exploring neural radiance fields, NERFs, as a medium for reality capture and presenting real worlds in digital environments?
Yeah, the question, I'll repeat it. Are we exploring NERFs, the neural radiance fields? Yeah, we're doing that. And there's some good things and bad things about it. It's looking much better for like metaverse type applications and that type of thing. So, but yeah, we're looking into it. We also need a big honking machine to do it, so it kind of goes against our ethos.
I'm going to expose my ignorance here. What's a NERF?
Now I'm in trouble. Can I call a friend? No, it's something I think NVIDIA's doing and other folks. It's a neural radiance field. You basically take a number of photos and it sort of fills in the rest of it. It's sort of like a photogrammetry, but it's got AI to sort of fill in some holes, is my understanding.
So like if you take an A and a B photo, it could potentially fill in the motion that human makes to achieve that?
That's my understanding.
Thank you.
Anyone else have any better explanation?
There is actually a presentation that goes into some of that in the next couple days.
It's a good thing we got a camera guy on stage.
I think the challenge is there is synthetic. My understanding is there is synthetic data in a NERF, and so that's why we think it's better for like a metaverse. I can't even say the word because it's sort of like as long as you kind of know what it is and think it looks good, that's all you need. But we haven't gone there yet with sort of engineering data.
This is good stuff. Any more questions? Missing anybody? I'm just going to stay right here next to my man. So.
I can't remember who made the point, but it was an interesting point, and that is, are we a group of travel agents right before the apocalypse? And I kind of want a little more discussion on that point. Like, who is going to be collecting reality capture data in the future? Are there going to be companies that specialize in this, or are there going to be specialists within every company?
Yeah, so in my opinion, I don't think it matters as much who's going to collect it, but who's going to work with the data and what added value they're going to do on top of it. Because in my mind, in my dream, I think we're going to have a suitcase that you open, a bunch of bees come out, capture whatever you want to capture, and go back to the hive to charge themselves. But what value you add, it's the same like internet. It doesn't matter who was delivering dial-up in the 90s. The industry was so small, people were making peanuts compared to what internet companies are making right now, because the whole market got elevated and people are adding greater value than ever before. We don't know what next player is going to pop up as the next unicorn on that internet world. It's going to be the same with reality capture, just on a different scale for now.
Yeah, I think it's going to grow and grow into the hands of more people. Like, whether you think about, Apple's now put it in your pocket, and so many people are using it for different reasons, just like, the ability to connect to like a Lowe's app or a Crate and Barrel app, and it can depth find the back of your living room and actually add a piece of furniture there to what you see about it, or to, I think we'll grow in, the architectural AEC space, engineering and that higher accuracy. But just in general, if you think about reality capture and think about photos or think about a LiDAR sensor, even the Roomba vacuum cleaners, they're continuously starting to learn more and more about your environment. You set a new piece of furniture down, next thing you know, they know what's there and they can avoid it. So it's just going to grow. It's going to be everywhere, whether we realize it or not.
Right. And realistically, this is a blending of many technologies. As you look at all of our solutions, they're all a blending of technology. And if you consider Snapchat these days, a lot of AR technology is going into our phone that most teenagers are realistically using and they don't even know it. Okay, so there's a ubiquitous status of blending of technologies that's happening. So I'd say that that's where it will eventually be.
I love the Roomba analogy. I got a Roomba a long time ago, and it was terrible. It would get stuck everywhere, it died, and then they put a camera on it, and they started using SLAM. And we use SLAM. It's different, very version of it, but we use SLAM at StructionSite. And I think it goes back to, what is the use case? Do you have hardwood floors? Do you have shag carpet? Do you have internet in your house? Is your Roomba going to be able to put that put that dirt back into the little contained box that it has? And we're looking at things like Spot and autonomous drones that are out there. And I think it's going to come down to the situation and what customers are willing to pay for and what the needs are. Is the project big enough to support a robot on it full time? What different things are you going to put on that robot that's doing the autonomous capture? Does that job site have access to internet? Does it have cell service? There's a bunch of factors that are going to come into play, and I think it's just testing boundaries and always being willing to try something new and find the right job and owner to work with on.
I guess since it was my analogy, I'll take a crack at answering your question directly. I think if you think about travel agents, remember it used to be that they were the only ones with the access to the Sabre system to book your ticket. So you couldn't book a ticket, you had to call them. Then you could do your tickets, but then everyone could get to Italy, everyone could get to Spain, and so now the travel agents became advisors on where to go, and they knew the cool little places, they knew the cool restaurants, and so I kind of feel like that might be where we go with this, is that it's everyone can get the data, but what do you do with it, and how do you interpret it, and how do you get value out of it? And I can imagine that being the evolution of kind of reality capture over time.
I think that we are at a unique, interesting position in time, because now every big company of the world is speaking about digital twin and industrial metaverse. And this is bringing a lot of opportunities, because you need to capture, you need to have a lot of data, you need to feed those digital twin strategies with reality capture data. I think that my analogy will be more like Netflix or Amazon Prime Video. They need so much content that they need a lot of producers. We are the producer of the content that will feed those digital twin and industrial metaverse experiences. And this is giving me a lot of optimism for the near future.
So, since we've kind of made our way down the line, I'm actually going to take my turn as a form of a question for everybody else. So, early in my career, I worked in GIS. And GIS has become an insanely invaluable part of our daily lives, right? You get in the car, you need to go to the gas station, you're tired, it tells you exactly where to turn. Very easy, right? And then we've got reality capture with, it captures existing conditions. And then we've got all these humans walking around that are really capturing our living situation every day in a million different ways. So I guess it may be a three-part question. Is that one is do you see reality capture becoming a major part of geographical information systems? Number two, and this one may need a whole another hour on somebody's channel, but does anybody have the right to collect that data through the avenue of everybody's devices? And then, I guess maybe the third point will come back to me, but the GIS thing I think is really important in that everyone's collecting this information. Every selfie that's taken essentially has reality capture data embedded in it and a geolocation, right? So the way that we provide information to the public, do you think that's ever going to be enhanced or enabled through reality capture? Or what do you think the hurdles are in terms of privacy concerns or data concerns or any concerns in general? So I'll leave it at that. Dominique, you go.
I'll take your spot. Real quick, that's already happening. Mapillary got bought by Facebook, I think. Is that right? You remember? You know Mapillary?
I believe
So
a little
basically,
bit.
take photos, pin them, and put them up there. So that's already happening. Waze is that when you say, "Hey, I saw a police car." So I think it's already happening. It's just not happening with engineering grade captured data.
On that same note about, are these pictures okay to be shared and can we collect information? At the end of the day, if a project does go to claims, it's all discoverable at the end of the day. So it's kind of ironic that there are projects where each person's doing redundant capture with the different sources that are out there, and at the end of the day, if something did go sideways, we've now hoarded this information for ourselves instead of sharing it, and then something went wrong because we didn't necessarily share or collaborate around it. And now that something has gone wrong, we now need to share that information to discover why something went wrong. So that's just an interesting roundabout.
That was probably the funniest comment I've heard all day.
All right, do we have any other questions out there? Oh, we've got one over here.
So this kind of speaks to the GIS element of this. I work with utilities, and they've been working with GIS systems that manage asset data and digital information, digital twin model type of information for 30, 40 years, but they're just getting into reality capture space. But the scale of utilities is more of a city scale modeling for reality capture. So the management for those systems is a lot more complex in the AEC industry. So where do you see reality capture going as far as long-term data management, integration with GIS systems, treating that more of like an asset of record system for a large-scale utility with tens of thousands of miles of line or those type of assets? And how do you see the industry adapting to meet some of those needs?
Can I talk again?
Okay. So this is interesting because I never thought my first real job would ever come back to relevancy, but here we are today. So in my first real job, I collected GIS data for utility. And this is pretty old stuff, but does anybody know of a software called OCalc? Okay, so I figured nobody. So OCalc was a way that you could essentially import the information that you collected from a disto on a utility pole of some sort, right? Which would give it like an A-frame or whatever. We're getting pretty technical. But this would create sort of a geometrical structure of what that was and the weight of the wires and all of that based on the disto points. And then that in turn could be converted to GIS data, which would then be used to fill out the metadata in the maps that we created in our GIS. Now this was 2005 when we were doing this, and I have since exited that industry. But to kind of say the same thing to you that I just got told about my question, I think that people are already doing it in a lot of ways, but there just isn't really a cohesive, direct way to do it.
And I think we may go back to you and ask the same question. What do you want to do with the data? What do you want to accomplish there? Because is it in restoration, for example? Should we use that as a great source of information in power restoration after a hurricane? Okay, so maybe we do different things to collect that data and manipulate the data in the software, put metadata on top of it.
So
all these things could happen, and
can I speak
think
a little bit to
we're
that
all
too?
probably addressing that.
Yeah, I think when it comes to reality capture and GIS, there's a lot of ongoing activities at small scale to large scale. When you look at things like mobile mapping on vehicle-based systems, ability to collect entire power distribution systems, entire municipalities, cities, roadways, all that data can come back into a GIS platform. The point cloud, the photogrammetry can be linked. And when you look at, systems like mobile mapping systems that have GPS sensors in them, even the majority of most scanners, tripod scanners, have GPS sensors in them. You have timestamps, you have dates, so to think back and being able to go back into historical information or look at current information, all that stuff should be possible. And when you look at natural disasters, right, and think about like a tornado ripping through the state of Texas, we've seen mobile mapping actually collect that data in the past, and being able to go back and feed that through a GIS system into insurance adjusters and engineers and so many different scales that need the data, and the GIS platform made it possible.
Can I ask a follow-up on that real quick? So part of the answer to what we use it for is everything, right? So transmission line design, inspection, pre-engineering work. So there's all these applications for it. More my curiosity is the long-term data management, digital twin city models. So managing 10,000 miles of line, it's a continuously updating reality capture model as part of your GIS asset base. Something like that where I can go and grab what I need out of that data to use it for inspection or for advanced engineering calculations and design, depending on the level of quality. So underground information, we scanned underground pipe networks, and so that we have those as a scan in reference to GIS, so that when it's buried or in concrete, you can go virtually visit those things as well. But having a city scale model that addressed storm and sewer and water and underground electrical and those things as well, those challenges on the size of the data and the continuous management of that data to keep it updated and current, those are things that I'm seeing as a challenge for the utility industry outside of just the use cases for some engineering design. So I'm talking a 20, 30 year asset lifecycle management system that from a data perspective is very challenging.
And I think it's all incumbent upon us as well to work well with companies like an Esri and an Autodesk and whatnot, and making sure that we can support what they need to get you what you need at a scale that you need it. And if you look from a very high level, looking at that pipe that's underground, it's okay if it's represented as a line at certain vantage points, but maybe at others it's not. So I think, once again, it's incumbent upon us to take that responsibility.
I think one other thing is talking about big clients, big jobs, people with multi-site. It's still, that's why, like Dominic talking about, the industry is still so niche that there's clients that are now getting to the point they're like, okay, we see the value in documenting, and we see the value of documenting underground and laser scanning the assets and converting the models and using that for planning. But there's honestly clients that get to that point, and then what? Who do they go to that can actually solve 1,000 sites around the country? Or there's still such a lack of users that there's a lot of room for growth as those needs arise and clients get to the point they realize that it's really hard for a service provider to go capture and handle that much data. So I think it's one of those things that just shows there's a lot more room for growth in the applications, and in it's going to require more people doing the work.
Yeah, man, I think that was interesting, the point you made about data, is that when I worked for my last company, which really specialized in actually doing projects, we started scanning and we started having success with it, right? So people would start to reach out to us and be like, can you scan for us? We don't need you to do anything else, just scan for us. And eventually, after a while, we got into the problem of we don't have enough rack storage. We don't have enough processing power. It really became a difficulty of hardware versus what our actual personal capabilities were.
Awesome. Any other questions out there?
Last call.
All right. Well, thank you guys very much. Give a hand to our panelists.